Welcome to the Tech Grinder podcast, where we are breaking new ground and pushing past the status quo when it comes to the startup ecosystem. But before we get started, the podcast has been created for entertainment and educational purposes only, and nothing in the content should be taken as investment advice. To see the full disclaimer, go to www.techgrinder.com. That's www.techgrinder.com. So let's get started, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, so let's get into it. You would almost have to be either insanely busy or living in the wilderness, completely unplugged and disconnected from the world, to not have heard the noise around generative artificial intelligence. The gold rush is definitely on. 2023 has so far been a special year for generative AI. There are generative AI applications surfacing to help people perform many writing tasks that include writing articles, copywriting, blog and social media posts, podcast episodes, resumes, and more. And then there are generative AI applications being used to create art and music. There are AI tools popping up to aid job seekers with many tasks and even build websites. As generative AI continues to evolve, we might see many groundbreaking and innovative applications emerge. We are not going to review or recommend any products. We are just giving a brief account of what has been surfacing recently. So now let's talk about content creation and ask the big question: how will generative AI tools affect content creation? Will these tools have the ability to move the needle for individuals and companies using them in relation to their content creation? If we look at content creation from a marketing standpoint, you basically have two ways to put that content out, either organically or some form of paid advertising. At this particular time in history, that is basically the choices we all have. So generative AI may influence that content, but the question remains, will it move the needle for individuals and companies in relation to their engagement and the attention they garner? This might be a fun time to step back and talk about individuals or companies that create content and put it out just for fun, with no expectations. You never know, they could have the luck factor kick in, use generative AI, and their organic content could take off. You never know, right? But when we really sit back and look at the reality of what is going on, yes, there are generative AI tools emerging, but the game of putting that content out in the world has not changed. Yes, there is definitely more information at our fingertips, but if that information just gets lost in a social media post that only a few people see, what is really going on here? It seems very logical that generative AI is going to be widely used when it comes to content creation going forward. But the real question again remains, will it help individuals and companies when it comes to the attention factor? In our podcast episodes, we have talked about this before, how important it is for businesses of all sizes to do well financially, as well as content creators. It is so important for the economy. It is pretty simple. If companies and content creators do well, they may be able to afford to buy software as a service products, as well as other products to continue to help them on their journey. If they don't do well, it is pretty safe to say they might not be able to afford any products. We think this is an important point related to SaaS companies, and it appears so far that a lot of generative AI applications are adopting a SaaS business model of some sort, or a freemium to premium model, which is considered a variation on the SaaS business model. But it is important to note that the strategies and the models could vary from company to company, And this is just a very basic overview in relation to SaaS business models. But let's get back to discussing content creation. As we were in the midst of creating this podcast episode, we started exploring creating long-form content and immediately found that when it comes to creating long-form content, that generative AI writing tools are intense as a research tool, but not something we as a company would use word for word by any means. At this point, we would only use it as a research tool, but as an information search tool, it is pretty incredible. We found that if we at some point needed to create internal guides, tutorials, manuals, or any kind of long-form content for internal use within our company, that these generative AI writing tools are powerful. And we realize that we are still in the early days of this technology, and the evolution is going to be profound. When it comes to content creation related to marketing, and when it comes to generative AI writing tools, we are still in the early days. When it comes to the question, will these writing tools help content creators move the needle and garner more attention? We will all just have to keep our ears and eyes open and wait to hear the stories that evolve from content creators and companies. It would again seem very logical that we are going to read and hear a lot of stories. We might be dreamers here at the Tech Grinder podcast, but we hope these tools will be used positively. We also hope that content creators and companies will be able to use these tools to increase their engagement and in turn move the needle for them financially. We hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Tech Grinder podcast. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can find us on Twitter, and as we evolve, also on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.